All right, thank you everybody for joining us tonight. This is part of our monthly speaker series that we've started this year. Tonight we're going to be talking about suicide prevention and awareness, and we have some guests with us tonight. First up will be Michelle Gehring. She is the Executive Director of NAMI Racine County, and here she is.
Hi. Actually, Kim was going to go first.
Oh, my.
Kim was going to go first.
That's okay, Nicole.
Sorry,
I'll edit this part out.
That's okay. You know what?
Happy family, so.
Kim and I were messaging
Kim
privately.
is going to go first. Kim Granger.
I'll introduce myself.
Okay.
So,
Me too.
hi, everybody. I know most of the faces. Well, I know all of the faces and one of the names. So welcome to those I don't know. My name is Kim Granger, and I am officially the Supervisor of Health Services at Racine Unified. That is my day job and now my night job, which is why I'm still in the office. But that's all things COVID-19, which is not what we're here to talk about. My other very important, close to my heart role that I serve is an advocate for suicide prevention. I am on NAMI's board of directors, although I have temporarily taken a little bit of a leave due to my workload and inability to juggle all things in making a priority of my own mental health. I had to say, you know, I can only handle so much. So that is a bit of what tonight is about recognizing that your mental health is very important, as is the mental health of everyone around you. I have a personal story to share with you of a really tragic nature. I did lose my 20-year-old son to suicide in 2017. And my story is unfortunately not uncommon. We are losing more and more people to suicide every year. The rate of suicide has increased by 33% over the last several years. I'm looking for that stat. I have all these notes around me. Where did it go? But it is something that concerns all of us here in this meeting. We do have suicide now as the second leading cause of death for individuals in my son's age group, which is between 10 and 34. We have very high risk groups, including gay, lesbian, and transgender youth, but we also have a huge risk in the military and our veterans. So there's really no age group that is out of risk from dying from suicide. So folks that identify as transgender are 12 times more likely to make an attempt, and lesbian, gay, and bisexual youth are 4 times more likely to have a serious attempt at suicide. And one of the things I guess that I learned after losing my son is that only 46% of people who take their own life had a diagnosed mental illness. However, when they do what they call the psychological autopsy after losing loved ones to suicide, they've found that 90% of individuals who took their life had some signs and symptoms of mental illness that were not diagnosed. So I really want to, and have made it my passion, get rid of the stigma about talking about it and say, you know what, it is okay to not be okay. And we go through times in our life, like right now, where everyone is stressed out with COVID. We've been isolated from each other. We don't have that loving support group of all of our friends around us. We're having to meet like this. That's not natural. You know, people need people. So we need to find ways to reach out and say, are you really okay? You know, you just don't look like yourself, you know, you look tired or whatever when we're seeing each other, not obviously in front of a big crowd, but don't be afraid to be that person that just asks, and take it one step further when they say, yeah, I'm just really exhausted, you know, well, you look thinner, you've lost some weight, you know, signs and symptoms of suicide are not always there. It takes someone asking, are you thinking about ending your life? Or have you thought about hurting yourself? Do you hurt yourself? Those have to be questions that we aren't afraid to ask. So one of the best tools that we have in prevention is our compassionate hearts for our neighbors and even folks that aren't our neighbors, not being afraid of the people that are on the street that look down or sad, to just give them a smile. It may be the only smile they got all day. And you never know when somebody might be on the brink of taking their life, and all it would take is a stranger giving them a compassionate glance and a, hey, how are you, that convinces them that life is okay. You know, it's going to be all right. We have our up days, we have our down days, you know, and sometimes that's what it takes to hold on. So we're going to end our conversation with a story of hope, but unfortunately, I'm going to tell you a story of loss that has helped me to grow in my knowledge, and hopefully I'm honoring my son by continuing to share my story so that others will recognize things sooner and maybe know what to do. So I've already shared the end of the story, but I'd like to share with you the beginning, because my son's name is Robbie, and he was born in '96 as a very welcome infant in a two-parent household. We were both working. I was able to cut my work schedule down so I could be home for a little bit in the mornings and then work a reduced schedule as a nurse practitioner. So everything was ideal. He had love and abundance, and, you know, didn't have struggles that a lot of our youth have today. So you would think everything, you know, would turn out well in the end. He was an awesome, precocious toddler. His little brother was born in 1998, and we were in Florida at that time. My ex-husband had a job transfer, and I was alone as a single parent for the first time. Not really a single parent, but he worked 12-hour days, so really I felt like a single parent. Didn't have a lot of support around me because I knew no one there. So I was a stressed out mom, you know, something that's not that unusual. There's a lot of stressed out moms, especially when baby number 2 comes along with a 2-year-old at home. He decided to get my attention, and this is just how strong-willed my Robbie was. He was going to stop napping when he was 2 years old, because when the baby napped, that's when he got mom. So again, more exhaustion, more, you know, probably was more short-tempered, but normal stuff, you know, nothing that anybody would think anything of, right? So we moved back to Wisconsin in 2000, and my ex-husband was diagnosed with non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, stage 4, and ended up needing a stem cell transplant. And we muddled through that as a family. We had grandparents that came and babysat when I had to go to the Mayo Clinic for days on end. We kept their routines consistent. Being a nurse practitioner, I kind of know like what kids need. So I always felt like they came first, and we planned for them. Sometime shortly thereafter, however, Robbie started having temper tantrums that were beyond the normal. So his temper tantrums would be, you know, it's time to take a bath, and he would scream, like literally scream for an hour. And you would physically have to pick him up and force him to be bathed. It felt like child abuse, you know, like if he didn't want it done, he was going to let you know that that was not okay. So I did talk to healthcare providers at that point. I actually talked to a therapist for myself, going through so much that I was going through with my ex-husband and trying to work and the kids. They were 4 and 2 at that point. Robbie's behaviors kind of would come and go like that, but as he got older, they got more destructive. So he started punching holes in walls when something didn't go his way. It would have been really easy to just give in and let him have run of the house, but that was not who I was as a parent. You know, I'm going to set limits, and there are going to be consequences for negative behavior in the house, but he was just as strong-willed that if he didn't want to do it, he was going to make our lives miserable. So we went through a great phase with very few behavior problems. We redecorated his room. I took off all the nasty 70s wallpaper and probably spent 3 or 4 weekends getting it exactly what he wanted. Royal blue on the top, bright white on the bottom, superhero posters everywhere, new bed sheets. And the next day that it was done, he got angry about something, and it might have been that something was being served for dinner that he didn't want. You know, this is not a major issue for most kids. Yes, they'll cry and have a fit, but they're over it. He went in instead and took a big push pin from his nice new bulletin board with the big push pins that matched his royal blue walls, and literally punched holes in his walls that I had just spent all that time working on. So he was a challenge, loved him to death. incredibly brilliant, never, ever had any signs at school or when going to friends' houses that anything was abnormal. Very pleasant to be around, super social kid, went to Montessori school, excelled there, then ended up at the Prairie School. He won a scholarship for tuition because of his academic success and really came out of his shell in high school. But when that happened, he pulled away from mom and dad. So we just didn't get to spend quality time with him. And at that point, it felt like adolescent rebellion. First kid, right? It's probably normal. He's just a little extreme, and he didn't want us to go to his soccer practices. He didn't want us to go to parent nights. We did anyway, but he was adamant that we not cheer for him, we not draw attention to him, like he was very embarrassed of us. So hurtful, I would say, in a lot of his adolescence. Tried not to show a lot of that, but to be, hey, I'm going to honor and respect what you want as much as I can, but I am your mom, and I am going to go to school nights. You know, I am going to come and cheer for you when you're playing on your sports team. But by the time he turned 18, his dad and I divorced, and he decided he didn't want to live with me. He wanted to live with his dad. So for a while, he was living with both of us and going back and forth. But when he was 18, he decided, no, he didn't want mom's rules. So he moved in with his dad, and he went to Madison after graduating as valedictorian at Prairie, senior class president, super popular, super confident, and he wouldn't let me move him in. So again, super hurtful, really tried to keep that door open. You know, Robbie, I love you and I'm willing to do whatever you might need, you know, but no, you're not going to destroy my house. And if you prefer to live with your dad, that's okay. But I want you, as often as you want to come over here, you're more than welcome. So that was my approach, hoping that this is a phase that he'll outgrow. And honestly, to the outer world, there was nothing wrong with Robbie. Robbie was like the perfect kid to everyone else. So he didn't have classic warning signs of changing his personality. He didn't get into drugs and alcohol. He didn't withdraw. He still took care of himself. I mean, other than this difficulty with his parents' relationship with him, he really truly seemed like he's doing great. And I knew in my heart of hearts, he would come back to me when he grew up. That, you know, you just need to grow up and realize what the world really is and how hard your parents have worked for you your whole life. And that didn't happen. But I would say sophomore year, he let me move him in, which sounds really silly when I say it, but it meant so much to me that we rode together. We stopped. We're at that donut place in Johnson Creek. I forget what it's called, but they have all those huge pastries. And we took a lovely picture with the sun shining down on us, almost like God's rays, you know, on both of us. And it just felt like, yes, we're there. I unpacked. I stayed all day. He gave me big hugs. He told me he loved me, which was like, I hadn't heard that in forever. Junior year, his dad and I both moved him into his house, and he started kind of coming home maybe 2 or 3 times a year and seeing both of us during that time. So I knew we were definitely getting there. And the Christmas of 2016, which was his junior year, he came home, and typical Robbie did not have a gift for me. He had one for his brother. And I don't remember if he had one for his dad, but, you know, we don't think anything of that because that's just Robbie. You know, he gets gifts, and, you know, maybe one day he'll get us a gift, but that's not what it's about. It's about being with him. You know, that was the gift. We made some great memories. He was a little stressed out at that point because his girlfriend of 2 years was going to Paris for her semester abroad. And they were kind of worried about what they would do without each other. I think they spent a whole lot of time together, and she was his person. But they wrote letters to open every week. They did all kinds of things. They took painting classes online together from, who's that painter? PBS. Can't think of his name, but you guys know I'm talking about with the trees. Yes,
Ross.
big hair. Rob Ross, that's
Bob
it.
Ross, yeah.
So they had a great time painting, you know, kind of virtually like this. His paintings were always amazing, by the way. I do have one I could show you later if you want to see it. But a talent, you know, like we just didn't realize he even had a talent towards art, but everything this kid did, he succeeded in. So they spent a whole week together before she went to Paris, kissed him goodbye and said, you know, you're going to be okay. You know, super proud of you. Keep it up. Double majoring. You got a lot of studying to do. The semester's going to fly by. I was at the time working as a nurse practitioner at Ascension in pediatrics and went to a continuing education conference in Colorado. My boyfriend and I went, and it was beautiful. It was so pretty. He can't ski worth crap, but we tried, and we went tubing, and we had the best time. And it was the night before we were going to leave that my phone must have rang, but I didn't hear it. When I woke up at 6 in the morning to get ready for the last day of conference, I looked at my phone, and there was a 608 area code phone message. So that freaked me out because I know that's Madison's area code. And I thought, oh my God, you know, what is it? You know, you're picturing emergency room or maybe he's in jail. I mean, I don't know, something's wrong. So I called the number, and the woman who answered the phone answered Dane County Medical Examiner's office. And I knew exactly what that meant. The medical examiner is the coroner, basically, not literally, but I was just floored. And I gave the name of the person that I was supposed to talk to, and it was the medical examiner. And she told me she was so sorry for calling me, asked if I was alone, you know, and so my anxiety right now, I'm like reliving that moment because you just instantly go into shock. But I knew it was real. Like I knew it as soon as I heard it. I knew he was gone. And I just couldn't imagine what happened, you know, so I couldn't wait for her to tell me, but yet on the other hand, I don't want to hear. But she told me that she was fairly certain that it was suicide. And you just sort of sit there and listen. I told her I was a medical professional and I wanted to know why she thought it was suicide. The investigation had to finish before the body could be released, so I couldn't see him. I was in Colorado, so the first thing I did was say to my boyfriend, get us home now. And he jumped on the phone and he took care of it, and we were on a plane 2 hours later because his little brother was at Model UN in Chicago, and he was going to be home at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And I did not want him to hear from anybody other than mom and dad what had happened. So we busted tail and I got home before he did, which is a miracle. I really think God was watching out for me that day in that sense. With social media, he totally could have heard from another Prairie student because come to find out, that was a Sunday morning and Robbie had taken his life on Friday. But his roommates didn't find him until Saturday. And then, of course, the police were called and the ambulance was called and the medical examiner tried to find us, and I was not home and his dad was not home. So it took them that long to get a cell phone number. And I don't even know to this day how they got my cell phone number. But then I had to tell his dad, and we all had, you know, it was just, it's something that anybody who belongs to the club of family members who have lost someone to suicide understands. And those outside of that club, thank God, don't. You just can't possibly understand. You can certainly sympathize, and I have such an amazing group of people, many of you right here on the screen, that give me that support when I need it. But there are support groups for suicide survivors. And if you happen to be a survivor, whether you're a sibling or a best friend or a parent, if you're a child who loses a parent, I really would encourage you to attend support groups designed for suicide survivors, because that's your people that really can help you get through it. And there are so many things you will feel and experience that you can't believe are normal. But when you start hearing other people telling their stories and how they're feeling, I have now been attending for 3 years. And so I nod as I hear new families, unfortunately, new people join us all the time, but I nod and say, yeah, I felt exactly like that. And you are going to get through this, and you are going to be okay, but you don't believe that right now, and that's okay. You know, we're here. So that's one of the things that NAMI has that I would strongly encourage any survivors to attend. Maybe you're not ready right now, and that's okay. I think it took me 3 months. Some people are there like the week after, which blows my mind. Some people it takes a year or two before they're really ready to talk about it. And that's okay. You know, it's a total, grief is an individual process. So, love that kid to death. Kind of want to end on a happy note. So I'm going to tell you about his parting gift to me. One of the things we did when he gave up his naps is we watched Bambi, the Disney movie, which I know is kind of violent for a 2-year-old, but I was thinking he liked the animals and the music, and so we always watched it. Something from Bambi held true for him, because apparently he did get me a Christmas gift, but it didn't arrive because he had ordered it from Etsy, and it came in January. I doubt you guys can read it, so I'm going to read it to you, but it's Bambi and his mom. He got it for me at Christmas, and he was holding it when he died. So this is what it says. I'm always with you. Even when you cannot see me, I'm here. So after lots of therapy and lots of self-love, I know that kid knew I was there. All those times that he was pushing me away, he knew how much he was loved. I know that, and this is my proof. Not everybody gets that, so I'm incredibly grateful to Robbie for leaving me with that, and also leaving me with the example of being somebody that pushes through and perseveres and makes a difference. That's his legacy. So that's why I'm here tonight, and I'm happy to talk to anybody afterward if you have any personal experiences you want to share. That's what helps get you through it. So now I'm going to let Michelle talk a little bit about a hopeful journey, and we'll be here for conversation afterwards.
Sounds good. Thanks so much, Kim. Can you all hear me okay? All right. You just knocked that square out of your Zoom bingo if you have it. But I'll start with where I'm at today and sort of work backwards. So my name is Michelle Gehring. I'm the executive director at NAMI. I started this role in January. So it seemed like such a perfect fit. But behind the titles are reasons why I'm going to tell you that it seemed like such a close fit. So looking back, I would say I grew up in a home that was close but not terribly demonstrative. I would say highlights from my childhood that affected my behaviors and my perfectionism and all of that. So I'm the eldest of 2. I had a sister who passed away at age 8. She was born with a liver disease. This was back in the 60s and 70s, so there weren't like pediatric liver transplants or anything like that. Looking back, I saw my parents fighting for her. So she was in and out of children's. They were making phone calls to pediatricians all over the country. I spent a lot of time with other family members. We were blessed that she was with us for 8 years. So I was 10 when she passed away. I don't remember a lot about my sister. I'm sure there's some protective mechanism. Normally I have a pretty good memory. I've always tested well and read well, but I just don't have memories of we went to the same school. We celebrated holidays. We had the same family pets, but I hardly ever talk about it, but I just don't remember much about that. And if I meant to someday, maybe I will. But for now, it's just my brain protecting me, and I need to honor that. So what came of that was I got into this mindset that I needed to take care of my parents. So I did that by being what was perceived as the perfect child. So my dad was a deacon, so I'm a pastor's kid. He was in the Navy, he was a coach. So authority for me was very obvious. So I got the good grades. I thought I liked school. I developed this, what I thought was a love of competitive running at a young age. So all of these led to this series of behaviors in high school and college of really kind of basing my happiness on what other people thought. So the grades, the accolades, you know, getting weighed every week, your stopwatch, the times. I thought I was doing well. My dad died when I was 17 died of an aortic aneurysm. And I remember people said, you know, take care of your mom. So again, I was in this sort of perfect child fit, but I had all this freedom now. And all I remember was like the year before, there was this girl who was a couple years older than me, cheerleader, beautiful, long perm hair in the 80s. And they were talking about where they were going to college. And she says, oh, I'm going to Madison because I want to party. And like, to me, that was like the most foreign concept, but I was sort of envious. Like, wow. So senior year, it was just me and my mom. I started looking at colleges and I decided I wanted to go to Madison. And that first semester, I sort of delved into that new freedom, and my GPA, I think, started with a 1. And, but I at the time, I was just like so ashamed because it was so different than how I was raised. But looking back, that was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because I finally was sort of free from something. So I transferred to a smaller school, still competed athletically, but it was a Division III school. So we had fun. And some of my closest friends now are still from college. We talk about everything but the competitive stuff or all that. So I thought I was starting to come around. A few days after I graduated college, I worked with Franciscan Volunteer Corps. So I worked on Skid Row in Los Angeles with a homeless assistance agency right in the thick of it. And then I worked with an HIV ministry in New York. So we rolled up our sleeves. We're out there. Nobody cared about times, titles, what you looked like, where you went to school, numbers, none of that. And it was just about human connection. And I loved it. So that's what inspired me to become a nurse. I'm a nurse by training. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit. I worked inpatient psych, worked in community, always that was my focus. For the past 10 years, I taught at UWM up until December of last year. That's how I first found out about NAMI. We had nursing students who came and did the nursing panels. Every semester, the students were come and go, but my relationship with NAMI started to grow as well. I started falling back into old patterns. So I was on the faculty, you know, if you did a good job, they'd reward you with more work. And then the accolades started coming again, and the alphabet soup after your name and all of that. I remember telling someone I thought was a mentor, I said, and I tried to be lighthearted about it. And I said, me need help. I said, I'm overextended. And it was, again, the same thing. Well, everybody's busy. You know, you have this opportunity, such and such and such. So that went on for a few years. About 2 years ago was really when I would say was my rock bottom. So I wasn't eating right, wasn't sleeping. I I would just have these crying spells. So I'll fast forward to when I went into treatment. I was at my mom's. I was having these neck aches in the back of my head where I couldn't move my head, but I knew that it was from stress. So like there was no bone spurs, x-rays, nothing like that. And I would just start crying. So I was taking NyQuil to help me sleep at night. And it worked, but if you take it for a while, you need a little more and a little more. So I'd only take it at night. I'd sleep, but I'd wake up groggy and grouchy. So right before I went into treatment, we were at dinner at my mom's, and I cracked my neck. And my mother, who was the least demonstrative person, roll up your sleeves, take an aspirin, you'll be fine. She said, you should really talk to someone about that. She's like, nobody deserves to be in pain, either mentally or physically. And I thought, oh, for my mom to say that, I must really be just this hot hager mess. And so I started crying, and it didn't stop. So we drove home, and we went through Starbucks, and they will kind of happy you to death at the drive-through, you know. And I remember the person gave me the cup, and they were joking, and someone had paid it forward. And she said, oh, I'm so happy. I just love my job. I love working with people. So we drove away, and you'd think a usual reaction might be, oh, that's nice, good. But I started crying these big, thick tears, and I said, I want a job where I can be happy with people. And I just cried. I stayed in bed all weekend. I went to my doctor on Monday, and we talked. I told her it was for neck pain. And she spent an hour and a half with me, referred me to the partial hospital program at Rogers. I cried in the shower the whole time there. My husband took me to the doctor, but he wanted to wait in the car. Poor guy waited 90 minutes when he thought it would be 20. But so I got there, and the nurse, when they do your blood pressure and stuff, put her hand on mine, and she's like, oh, you're fine. She meant well, but my whole life I've been told you'll be fine, everyone's busy, and so that started the floodgates. So so for me, I started at Rogers. That was my last semesters at UWM. I felt ashamed because I had to go to my boss and tell her I wouldn't be able to finish the semester fully. And I didn't want to tell her it was because of mental health stuff. And my mind went to this place of kind of self-harm. So a few years before that, I tried getting back in shape. I overdid it a little, and I blew up my Achilles, which I can laugh at now because it wasn't, I had physical therapy, I got back out there. But at the time that I was at Rogers, I thought, well, maybe if I ran hard enough and overtrained again, I could blow up my leg, and I could show her a picture of the air cast, and then that would get me out of it. And I could not stop crying. I was so ashamed of that because I thought I devoted my career to mental health because it was a field that I loved. But then I ended up talking to her and got really, really good support. And I don't know her story, but my boss at UW was someone who worked with postpartum depression patients, traveled the world to what we would call third world or developing countries. So I knew she had a heart. So I left on good terms. When I went to Rogers, it was that same week. It was on the second floor, and all I remember is walking up the stairs, and my knees were shaking, my arms were shaking, I was crying. I'd been a nurse all those years and seen doors close and lock a million times, but when it was me, it was like that 20-foot walk to the desk felt like a mile. And I remember signing in, and my hand was like shaking, and but I did it, and I sat down. Um, and then I was there for a total of about 7 weeks. And I remember when I was first there, I cried the whole day. I still was getting those headaches in the back of my head. And when you get there, they ask you to do, all those surveys, your depression survey, all of this. In the last 7 days, how often have you done this? And I just thought, how did my life get to be this? Because it's like frequently in the last 7 days, not eating, not sleeping, crying spells, not wanting to see anybody. So it took me almost 2 days to fill out those surveys. And it's kind of a brat because I said, I told you I have a headache. I don't want to do this. But they just kept coming around and coming around. The salvation for me too was the groups. When they first said, when people cry, your neck gets tense, and so you might feel it right here. And it's like, well, how did she know that? That's exactly the spot. And so I learned some good self-care strategies. I'm still not good at the meditation stuff because I don't like that soft music. I don't like quiet. So I think one thing that's good for me in my corner office, like I really like kind of hard music. That's where I get my zen. So I play it at work. And I'm sorry, you guys, if you've heard it coming from my office, but I found for me that that's relaxing. And I was very fortunate to be in a place that let me discover that. Because I was forced to meditate against my will the first time, and they said, well, what works for you? And they just really took their time with me. So forwarding to a place of hope, I take Zoloft every day. I'm lucky that I found a dose that works for both anxiety and depression. I take melatonin for my sleep, which works great. It's very gentle. I'm not giving any sort of medication advice. I'm only sharing what works for me. So I was continuing outpatient therapy, and around that time, a job opening at a certain place called NAMI Racine came up, and I said, I think I want to try it. And I know you're here, some people at my interview. My therapist got a couple other therapists there, and they did a mock. I never told you this, but they did a mock interview with me, and they were really tough. They really helped. And I thought, well, I haven't interviewed in 10 years. I have this lived experience now. I need some grant experience, but if I'm transparent about that up front, they'll know, and maybe they'll help me out with mold in that. I never told you this, Kim, but that first interview, I just knew they were like the best people. We laughed, we got to know each other. I was nervous as all get out because I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's the NAMI standard sheet that you have to use to interview everybody. So everybody, all the board was there with a sheet of paper, all writing. And I saw it out of the corner of my eye. It's like, oh, we're at the bottom of the page. And then they flipped it over. They flipped it over and there was a whole other page of questions. I was like, oh shit. So, but I mean, I've never felt more connected to that group, to my therapy group, to people I told. My references really came through. And I just, for the first time in my life, I felt like I let people take care of me, and I could talk about, here's where my imperfections are, this is where I need help. So went for a second interview, and they did my background check before my second interview. I thought, well, maybe that's a good sign, but I don't know. I just feel like this job really kind of saved my life. And I hope that I've done you guys proud, and as a Racine native, that I've done the community proud. I couldn't ask for better coworkers and better mentors and people. I don't take it for granted at all. So I feel like today I'm coming from a place of strength. I still have work to do for myself. Some of the anxiety and things I feel are more situational now, and there are still times when it's like, I don't have a clue, but it's a good place to be in. The nonprofit world really has taken great care of me. And for the first time in my life, I've let myself be taken care of. I always feel like I have an open door policy at NAMI. My phone's always available, my email's out there. So, I'm here for support. We get calls every once in a while on our peer line, and I can hear the person's voice shaking because it's new, and it's like those kind of connections are my strength. So thank you for taking a chance on me and for lifting me up, and hopefully here's to many more years. So thanks for letting me share my story in that kind of impromptu.
It's really sweet to hear, Michelle. Thank you for sharing your story. Sorry that we stressed you out. We were kind of new at it too, and having questions prepared is a way to try to feel the same, and but I wouldn't want to be on the other side of that. So
no, it kind of sucked, but it was but it was worth it. I think it was worth it.
So the whole point of having her tell her story is that, you have survived, you have been to that deep, dark place, and you have gotten help and been brave and not been afraid to say, I need help, and I think that's the key. And if you're not ready to go to a support group, there are hotlines that you can call anonymously. In July of 2022, it's going to be like 911. There's going to be 988. That's going to be a national number that you can call if you need help with your mental health. Specifically, if you're feeling suicidal, that is the suicide hotline starting in July of 22. So that's kind of far off. So what you need to know now, if you need the hotline, is 1-800-273-TALK, T-A-L-K. That's how I remember it. And if that even makes you nervous, because I think to Robbie's story, and don't think he would have even thought to call a hotline. He was a young adult, and, I think even having the negative thoughts bothered him. He was very similar to you, Michelle, and that feeling the need to be perfect was probably what was eating at him for so long. And not that we as parents wanted to make him feel that way, because we certainly didn't. He didn't really want to ask for help. One of the sad things is he did have the courage to go to Student Health Services and Madison and say he wanted to talk to somebody, but he got a list of counselors to call, and he never made that call. So maybe if he had known there's a text line, a hope line, which is 741-741, he could have just texted and said, I feel like crap, and been anonymous, so that's something to share. They do have little hope line bracelets that I wear all the time. I always have an extra one with me, and I pass these out like candy when I feel like somebody is not in the best of, spots. So that's an easy thing to do. Another thing that Kurt has been helpful with on the Suicide Prevention Task Force is having the number on the back of IDs. So like employee IDs. Racine Unified hasn't done it yet, as you can see, which is frustrating. Some organizations have started to put the crisis number, which is, so for locally, if you're immediately in crisis, that number is 638-6741. So we can provide through Central Racine County Health Department and Human Services stickers. If any employers want to apply those stickers to the back of their employee badges, this is usually something people have, right? If your employer has an ID badge, that's a great thing to do. Racine Unified has decided to take it another step further and actually put on, come on, Kim, other helplines. I'm blanking, but crisis, the suicide lifeline, the helpline, and then I think domestic violence maybe is another one that they're putting on there, or sex trafficking, I'm not sure, but some other numbers that are useful for staff and for students to just reach out and call, even if they're not the person that's struggling. I will say that I did a test with the Hope Line, And I texted to say, I'm a mom who lost her son and I'm just checking to see what happens when you text. And they boom, texted me right back. They didn't let me go very easily. They wanted to make sure I was really okay. So I've had people in my support group that have used that when they just need to blow up at somebody. If you need to just scream, and you can do it via text or you can do it on the hotline, they don't take it personally. You know, that's just where you're at. That's an anonymous person that is more than willing to listen to you and make sure you're okay. So spread that around. You know, that along with your personal love is going to go a long way. So I would say Julie is a mental health expert as well. Do you have anything you would want to add? Do you want to talk a little bit about the community clinic here at Racine Unified that's open for the public?
Sure. There's a lot of great resources too, and I just want to take a minute to recognize our Racine County Family Resources website that we have. It actually has a built-in behavioral health pathway, referral pathway. So you can actually go online and make an appointment with a therapist, and then it will ask you questions because what it's doing is trying to route you to the right person. So that way it is a great, it's new to Racine, so that's also a great resource. At Racine Unified, we do have a community mental health clinic that's here to service our kids and their families, and that's through Professional Service Group, and that's an easy phone call at 262-638-2000 and to make an appointment to see a therapist. And there's also med prescribers there as well. And they treat both mental health and addictions. That's also a really great resource for our community as well.
How about you? You have anything you want to throw out there for resources? You're very well connected.
Did you say that to Kurt?
Yeah. And now to you, Kurt.
Oh, gosh, well, holy cow. I first want to thank both of the presenters because the stories you've shared, Kim, I felt like I lived your story with my own son who also graduated from Prairie. So, and so I am so glad that I tuned in tonight. One of the things that struck me when I started working on Taylor Avenue, I would walk in on the south side of the building, which there's two canopies, and so it's the door on the right. You know, for people that aren't direction oriented, I just say either the door on the left or the door on the right. I noticed that at 7:30, 8 o'clock in the morning, there would be a crowd in the waiting room of the building. And I would go in and I'd start nodding, and before long, you just get the people that say hello back or, you know, welcome you. So it's just that community of people. And I had no idea that the county delivers meds to people from that window. And that's where people can go if they, I presume, are court ordered, or if they don't feel their system is organized enough, or they need that support. They hike, bike, walk, take the bus, and they get there and their meds are dispensed to them. And I fell in love with the behavioral health program of Racine County when I learned that that resource was there. I don't know if that exists everywhere, but I had never even heard of something like that. And because I see many of the same folks, when I'm at the homeless shelter, I'm at the soup kitchen, I'm in the church basements, whatever, I really connected the dots that help these folks maintain their lives and be able to function. I want to continue growing in my mental health awareness. Some of you on this Zoom meeting are my Facebook friends. And just today, I posted that it's becoming fashionable to be vulnerable about your mental health. And yeah, I just thought we need to say this. So if you are a friend and you want to check that out, I posted a couple of resources that are behavioral health. Number one, the one that I associated it with was I think it's the first week in October is Mental Health Awareness Week. And so that's where I posted, you know, it's becoming fashionable because I'm determined to normalize as much as possible the care, the love, the compassion that we all need. And so at any rate, you've got an advocate here for all the issues that vulnerable families face. And I think behavioral health is at the root of so many of the families that may face 8 or 10 or 12 challenges and barriers. I agree with you about the diagnosed number of patients and how many folks go undiagnosed. I had no idea that I had mental health problems until I spent, like Michelle, 7 weeks in a locked unit learning about myself. And I remember the doctor when he described me, I walked out of there with 3 diagnoses, and I just thought I was a nervous wreck. Didn't know what those of you that know me know that I came to this field from a business background. So I have none of the human services or social services training. I just was an employer that held way more compassion for employees and associates and members of the community than a lot of other guys do. But I love what I'm doing now, and I get to be somebody's good day every day. My point was that when I was diagnosed with OCD, I knew that was a thing, and I knew that was the people that check the doorknobs constantly and the locks, and they can't leave the house because the stove. I didn't have any of that, and so I just didn't know. My wife and son, when I told them, they visited on a Saturday, and I said, "You won't believe this, but they diagnosed me." And they were both in the car, kind of in a, well, duh, we could have told you that. I just had no idea. And I even told the doctor, I said, well, I just assumed everybody else was wrong. They weren't doing it my way. So I've learned quite a bit in this capacity professionally, as well as in this capacity as a fellow patient and someone who's on a journey and really, really loving it. It's not fun, but I love who I've found I am in all of this. And we too have a son who has let us know it's not a matter of if, it is simply when. And so, you know, I've tried engaging his culinary interests. I keep trying to find ways to keep him around, but he has made it very clear. He's cut off all of his friends with the exception of one. And it's so they won't be disappointed when he's finally gone. And it's very, very tough to be parenting that young man. He's turning 30 this year, and in October on the 1st, so in a couple of weeks. And we knew we had problems starting in high school at Prairie. When he was hospitalized at Rogers back in 2016 or 17, following a suicide attempt, he informed his doctors that he had known since he was age 7. And Sue and I were totally flabbergasted. But that kid, he's our most honest, he's our most gentle, kind kid. He's our exceptional performer and masters every skill he sets out to learn, and has this for self-esteem. And it's so hard on parents. You were talking, Kim, about it being a club, that if you're a member of it, you understand. To be a parent that loses someone in that way it's just simply hard. And I am so glad that we have this format to share these discussions and to share resources. And for those of you who might not know or participate yet, racinecounty.com/outreach is a way to register for a network of 400 of Racine County's helpers. And so it is all of the social agencies, the nonprofits, it's everyone that helps. It is law enforcement, it's the Guardians of the Children biker gang, it is school social workers, it's everyone. And we had a Zoom meeting this morning and had about, I think we had 100-ish registered for it. And we learned about, today it was focusing on children and childhood development and protecting children. But we welcome any organization that would like to present and let folks know about their mission, their new direction that they're heading in, the new grant that will serve families that fit in these categories. It's a great way to for us to learn. We're helping people and we know about 2 things. Well, now we just met 8 other people, and a family we have is dealing with 5 of their issues. And so now we've just expanded our sphere of influence. So thank you for letting me be here. Thanks for including me. And I can check off all the ways that I benefit from this, and from both I've got a couple of
You have one in every Zoom meeting.
So at any rate, thank you. And
Thank you for sharing.
Thank you for sharing, yeah.
That was very wonderful of you to share. And I will make sure we're Facebook friends. So message me if you ever just need someone to talk to.
That goes for all of us, Kurt.
Too, if you think that would be helpful. I can give them the mama's perspective on hanging in there.
Thank you. I went into, and I signed myself in when I went into a locked unit, having lived into my 60s without ever revealing a crack or a chink in the armor, or that there were any issues. And now I am unfiltered and not ashamed. And that's just a healthier way to live for me. So
Mhm.
I think it is,
Me too.
once you can do that.
Yeah.
Anybody else want to add anything or share a story or ask a question?
I don't have a question or anything necessarily or a story. Well, so I had my mom's cousin took her life. Oh my gosh, was that in? It wasn't too long before COVID, so I feel like maybe it was early February or late. No, I think it was late January because it wasn't too long after my birthday, or just before, somewhere in there. But yeah, that was awful, and I still I have the card from her. They had like a memorial service, and I have the card on my dresser, so I look at it every day, you know, as like a as a reminder. And I just you know, I was talking to Michelle about the journey that kind of led me to my job now, really. And I kind of talk about it, you know, when I do my Ending the Silence stuff too. Like if certain things hadn't happened to me or I hadn't gone through, I probably wouldn't be here with you guys, you know, working at NAMI. And it's just kind of weird to think of, you know, to think back on what leads you to a certain point. And I, you know, if I hadn't had my own breakdown and, you know, wanted to hurt myself or have issues with my medication, which I was on medication, and also do the partial hospitalization program, and find NAMI, it, you know, and intern for them, and then, you know, have Jackie tell me, you know, by kismet that there was a job. And yeah, I'm just so thankful, you know. And I oh, sorry. Just I'm just so glad, you know, because I know, like, if I'm ever in a, you know, bad spot again, I know exactly who to go to. Oh, sorry. But I'm just so glad that we're doing things like this, because if we weren't, you know, because, like, you know, the 10-year-old to 20-year-old me who didn't, you know, who felt more alone and didn't really feel like they had a like support system or anybody they could tell that they were, like, you know, struggling, but didn't even have the words for it yet, like what they were feeling. Just these aren't sad tears. They're you know, I'm just thankful, and I'm just glad that I can now be in position to help people, and I'm like connected to so many amazing people, and yeah, I'm just glad. And you know, I can imagine how difficult that story still is to tell, and the same goes for Michelle and Kurt and everybody. So I just want to thank you guys, and, you know, for letting me be a part of all this too. Sorry.
For the ride.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Takes a village.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, it does, for sure.
Yeah.
And Kurt, you know, I know you know us, and with your son, I can't even imagine. So, I mean, you know, we're here too, and we'll help any way we can. So,
thank
just
you.
want to say that again too. Yeah.
Lister. He tried NAMI a couple of times, and
Yeah.
felt he was fresh meat, you know, a young kid coming, and so he felt like, you know, they oh boy, we're glad to have your perspective, and that just sends him. He is an off the radar introvert. I'm not, and that can just irritate the heck out of him. No, Dad, I'm not going to First Friday with you, even though it's a group we like, because you can't not introduce me to everybody around. Casey, I promise I won't.
You can't promise that.
Yeah. So yeah. Wow. Well, thank all of these beautiful faces for listening and sharing with all of us. I am so grateful. And
Mine too.
Allison, I'm glad you found where you landed.
Me too.
We
Yeah,
are
with my mom's cousin, I don't know. I mean, I was, so glad that I had people to tell about it and how I was, I didn't know her very well, but I was angry, at first, like, how could that happen? And I had that, that fire that we have, like, I wanted to help her, and I, you can't unfortunately help everybody, but I just, and I still, sometimes when I look at the card from the memorial, I'm still like, if I just, it's hard, it's so hard. But I'm glad that I have the knowledge, and there are people who I have and can help, and that makes it, a little easier. So yeah, definitely.
And I don't know if the medical examiner, Mike, has made it public, but I have heard that there's about a suicide a week in Racine in the obits in the paper. And boy, that is hard. I mean, we're not a big community, but there's a lot of hurt.
There really is.
There
There really is. And I know the survivor support group that I attend is in Kenosha, simply because I was connected to the leader of that program. She works very closely with the medical examiner in Kenosha on outreach to families who lose a loved one to suicide. And that is something that we've talked about doing in Racine, as well as trying to have a meeting with the medical examiner to just provide information to give to families for when they're ready. What's normal in terms of how you feel. And Allison, you hit the nail on the head that anger comes and goes, shock comes and goes, grief comes and goes. I still feel it, sometimes
yeah.
I feel responsible. Sometimes I feel angry. Sometimes I feel just super sad, like
Yeah.
to my core, super sad. And all of that is normal,
Yeah. Yeah.
take off of work. I will never work on Robbie's birthday. I will never work on the day that he took his life or the day after, because that's the day I found out.
Yeah.
Or actually, I found out 2 days later, but
Right.
all 3 of those days suck. They just suck. And I know that. So as you get through the grief process, you kind of learn how to protect yourself and when.
Yeah.
And like I said before, it honors him when
Yeah.
I put myself out there and I say, this is how he struggled in silence. And we did try to seek help, but like you said yourself, Allison, you can't force somebody
No.
to talk. You can't force somebody, Kurt, to want
No.
to get help, and you have to know, as a parent who's spent, in your case, 30 years and in mine 20, trying to make life everything wonderful for your kids. That's what parents do. So I know the perspective of the parent, but there are others out there that know the perspective of the niece, the godchild, the child who loses a parent. And I really strongly encourage people that have gone through it. You'll be amazed when you start talking about suicide, how many people know someone. I can pretty much guarantee everybody on this conversation knows someone that either had an attempt or succeeded in taking their life. Men are 75% more likely to succeed, but women are more likely to attempt. So we're all in this together.
The reason men succeed more often too is because they use more lethal forces.
Yep. And that gets you into gun control. And, you know, I don't want to go to
I
political
know.
places, but, you know,
Down the rabbit hole.
that's advocacy too. You know, just trying to think about all the weapons we have in society, you know, just protecting our vulnerable people. It's hard, but it's critical.
Well, thank you very much to
Thank you.
both you ladies. for
Yes,
pre-
thank you guys.
Thank you, guys.
You're welcome.
It was an
Thank
excellent
you.
program again. It was really something that we all need to take into mind. I want to thank everybody for sharing their stories and being vulnerable to tell the story. But it's so important that we do to normalize that this is
Yes.
who we are. This is part of life. And when stress happens, we need to take care of ourselves. And what a better way of an advocate in telling our stories of recovery and hope.
Yep.
Because look where you all landed. We all
Right.
landed. I think we landed in places you're supposed to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys
Yeah.
are stuck with me now, so.
And we love you, Michelle.
We wouldn't have it any other way.
You're
Thank
grateful
you.
to us for hiring you and giving you grace. I'm grateful to you guys for allowing me to kind of take a step backward when I had to. You know, my heart and soul are still with you, but you've allowed me to have good mental health. So obviously NAMI is a great place. And the purpose wasn't to just push pro NAMI stuff. It was really to
Right.
have that conversation. For those of you that haven't spoken, I hope you gained something from this conversation. So glad that you're here. I would have loved to have 100 people on the call, but I always say, if it helps one person, that's all that matters. So I hope that this was helpful for at least one of you. And let's keep the conversation going.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Kim, you know, there's so much that we can't control, but what we can, I just wanted you to notice that the OCD in me has totally noticed that your nails and the sign behind you, the colors go together. Yes. And so I just wanted you to know that you pulled that off perfectly.
Well, thank you, Kurt.
That's
I'm not sure I was
very good.
aiming for that, but I'm glad that happened. Although I did pick one off tonight as I was a little nervous. True disclosure.
Well, thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Yes.
everyone.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for joining.
Thank you.
Talking.
Good to see everybody.
Take
All
care.
right.
Bye.
Have
So
a
we'll
good
wrap
night.
it up. I just want to remind everybody we have a next one next month. Michelle, what is the topic
Mhm.
for next month?
Let's see. Next month, we are having a panelist from Rogers, Dr. Jamie Roberts, talking
Yes.
about depression. She'll also be featured during our Mental Illness Awareness Week on that Friday at noon, October 9. And then we'll be re-showing it for this panel too. So
Wonderful.
yeah, we've been lucky
Perfect.
to have partnership with Rogers. So.
Yeah. So we've got a great lineup for Mental Illness Awareness Week. So hit the NAMI Racine County website, and all of those activities are detailed in there.
They're on our Facebook, NAMI Racing Facebook as well.
Perfect.
Great.
Thank you, everyone. Have a
Thank
good
you,
night.
everyone.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
Everybody,
Thank
send a
you.
little email.
I can hear you. I can see you. So,
Okay,
okay.
I
Thanks.
got it. So I'll record that and you'll start getting the emails.
Yeah, Gay had just sent it out to all of us and said anyone who wants to attend it. So I attended, and I would like to keep attending these.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah. I'll definitely get you on that list then so that you
Okay.
can stay up to date with everything.
Good. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye.